Anybody here didn't know that? So the whitehouse.gov now running on Drupal. Awesome triumph for open source and for Drupal. And by the way, there's a lot of interest in DC about Drupal, and that's great. And I started some conferences recently, the Gov2O Summit and the Gov2O Expo, which are really focused on the new interest in technology in Washington. How can we use technology to advance the cause of open government? In doing this, I've been really inspired by a guy named Carl Malamud. He's one of the unsung heroes of the internet. And just to give you an idea of his impact, in 1993, now how many of you were building websites in 1993? Any of you? Few of you. Okay. Well, Carl Malamud put the SEC online for free in 1993. The government was just like nowhere near thinking about the web. But Carl got a small grant, few servers. He licensed the data. I think it was $50,000. He got a grant from, who was it who gave it to him? From the National Science Foundation. He bought the data, which was currently being fed only to big fat cats on Wall Street, and he put it up for free on the web. He operated the service for a year and a half and then donated it to the federal government. That's how the federal government got their first website. Right? And so Carl has continued this passionate quest for open data and open government data. He's now focused on something called law.gov. He's really trying to get the law of the land of all kinds up available for free. This is he says, look, law is the source code of our government, and how can it be that you actually have to go pay to read the laws that govern you? Because there are a lot of laws, and particularly things like technical specifications, say in building codes, they're incorporated by reference, and you have to go pay to see these laws that govern you. And he's passionately working on open data there. There's also a group called My Society in the UK that's building amazing services like FixMyStreet.com, which is the predecessor of all the 311 kind of services here in the US, or the other one which has such a great name, a site for tracking Parliament called TheyWorkForYou.com, which is a great way to remind us of the right order of things. But Tom and Carl and a number of other open government advocates came together at our offices in Sebastopol in 2007, and we talked a lot about what does it mean for data to be open. And this work in government, I think, applies in the private sector as well. We said, gee, if you really want to call it open data, it should be complete. It should be primary sources. It should be timely. That is, don't give it to us, 2 years later when it's out of date. It needs to be accessible, for any purpose. It needs to be machine processable. Don't give us a PDF and call it open data. Give us the actual raw source. It's got to be non-discriminatory. It's got to be non-proprietary. It's got to be license-free. So we kind of tried to develop some principles of open data. And I really urge you to go find this document. If you Google for Open Government Data Principles, you'll find it. And of course, this has led the federal government to actually take up this idea. And we have sites like data.gov, which is this massive dump of all kinds of government data sources. Some of them extremely useful, some of them extremely useless, some of them well-formed, some of them badly formed. But what an achievement that we actually have people in our government trying to be part of this web platform by making government data accessible. Nat Torkington, who blogs for Radar, used to run the open source convention for us, wrote a really important post about open data recently called Truly Open Data, in which he talked about how stupid he felt for pushing for open data without thinking enough about the tools that it would take to manage that data, and how there's a revolution needed. And I think some of you may be part of solving that. How do we actually do revision control on data? How do we do authentication of who changed it? This is so critical. Wouldn't it be great to know who inserted that change into a bill in Congress? So again, but we need the tools to do that. And so again, I would suggest you read that post. The other area that I'm really interested in seeing the government doing really good work in is in healthcare. You guys know that there's been a lot of debate about the government. You know, if you were to read or watch Fox News, you'd think, oh, the government's trying to take over the healthcare, kind of like the Borg on Star Trek. That's not so at all. I mean, I've been in meetings with these guys. The way they're thinking about healthcare information systems is so consistent with open source. They're actually building a couple of projects. One is called HHS Connect, the other is NHIN Direct, National Health Information Network. In each case, they're building open source projects that are about data interchange. And then it's kind of like a core. It's a little bit like an HTTP server, if you would think about it, for healthcare data. And they're saying, okay, companies, whoever can build the browsers, can build the tools that the users interact with. We just want to make sure that there's open standard protocols for interchange. And what's more, there's a big part of the stimulus bill, I think something like $20 billion allocated to incentive payments for doctors to adopt open healthcare, you know, open health data records. That's pretty amazing stuff. And I think that I guess all I'm saying is I'm fascinated by what's happening there. I think there's a short window of time in which we can make a difference. And I would just urge you to pay attention and get involved if you're not already involved. And it's not just in Washington. There are groups like Code for America, which was started by Jen Palka, who's one of the people who worked with me on the Web 2.0 events and the Gov 2.0 events. And I see actually down in the front row there Gina Blaber, who also worked with me on both of those events. Jen actually left to start this nonprofit, which is a little bit like Teach for America, but it's taking coders to work on with city governments to help them do open government projects. And I hope some of you will get involved. Check out the Code for America website and see if there's any way you can help, because there's a lot of opportunity. But I want to finish with a couple of comments more about government, because and that will loop back around to what we do every day. Now, this is a graph that shows the growth of government spending over the last 100-odd years.